Welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes of Wisdom, a channel dedicated to helping you expand your knowledge and develop a more successful and peaceful mind. Today's guest is the CEO and founder of Virtuous Women Finance, which is a service that coaches women to achieve financial success and freedom, owns multiple properties, and is one of the smartest and hardest working people I know of, a good friend of mine. Please welcome Sabrina Pilet. Welcome, Sabrina.
Hey, Andrew. How's it going?
Good. Amazing. So nice to see you, Sabrina.
Thank you for having me.
Great. I'm excited. We have so many good talks and interesting talks, and sometimes we have to until our phones stop, just stop by
literally die out.
So so I'm excited to have you on the show today and share some of your personal wisdom with the audience. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the situation because we kind of have to, and then we're going to get out of it, because as an optimist, everything is going to be good and everything's going to be settled. And then when this is all done, which we're in right now, the isolation due to COVID-19, no one's going to want to hear about it in the future. So we have to address it a little bit, and then we'll move on to more bigger things. Cool?
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So tell me a little bit about how it's been for you this past month and a half.
Well, I mean, for sure, there's always a transition period for everybody. So I think that I went through that change suddenly and I needed to adapt, but I also needed to grasp the reality of what was happening. I would have to say, as an entrepreneur, there was a lot of highs and lows that I was feeling because of the economy being affected by the disease that's going around right now, and all of our lives, the changes and everything. And I think that it was difficult, but it was very necessary for me to remain optimist and try to spread that optimism to other people. This has happened before in another form, and it did pass. It seems very long sometimes, but it does pass. So I think it's just the staying positive, and eventually I was able to get out of that transition period and fear and everything else that I was feeling. And I think that I was able to get through that, and I'm still working through that.
You're always so calm. Every time since I first met you, you're always very calm demeanor. Things could be going. You're the greatest person, the greatest ally to have in a crazy situation. If something was on fire or whatever, you're the best person to have in the room, because you're always calm, cool, collected, and able to work through things with no matter how much stress. So what kind of tools or best practices are you using to remain peaceful and calm?
Well, I think you said it. I think the number one thing is I try to calm myself down. People see me as naturally calm, but I feel what I feel inside. So I think that the one thing I do is tell myself to calm down and that it'll be okay. I think another tool that is super important is really to have a positive mind and mindset. So you need to tell yourself to calm down, because even if your spirit is strong or your mind is strong, sometimes your body will react to the stress that you're living. And it's important to address that. So if your mind is positive, I think that maybe 80% of the job is really done. If your mind is strong and it's always hoping for better and knowing that better will come, I think that that's what really helps us through a lot of things. So that to me would be very crucial as a tool, is always constantly working on your mindset, being aware of your thoughts and what you're thinking, and readjusting if ever your thoughts are not aligned with positivity or, and any type of empowerment, then you need to work on that and have a shift towards things that are empowering and positive.
Okay, cool. Do you have a go-to affirmation list or a mantra or something that you kind of say to yourself when things start going awry? Do you address yourself as Sabrina, calm down, or how do you do it?
Well, yeah, in a way I do talk to myself, which is kind of weird, but I will tell myself to calm down. I might not speak to myself in the third person or anything, but
that's only me. Okay.
But yes, I will be okay, just relax. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes I'll do deep breathing techniques. It actually really works, and it even works when you're in pain or you're panicking or your heart is beating fast. Breathing deep inhales and exhale. Sorry, they really do help.
Oh yeah, I've heard that,
So
like the 5-5-5, right? I think there's all these different ones, but one of them is like box breathing or something. I think that's probably the wrong term, but like 5-5-5. So you breathe in, and then you count like slowly for 5 seconds. You hold for 5 seconds, and then you exhale for 5 seconds. I believe that.
right, but yeah, I do that. But over time, I noticed that at the beginning, I used to go to books or I don't know, any form of literature to give me inspiration on affirmations that I can say and release into my own life. But I realized with time that because we are creative beings, we can bring into existence anything we want. So I just affirm, what is it that I want today? What is it that I want to see in my life? And I just say whatever comes to me. And I think confidence has a lot to do with it. If we have the habit of constantly looking to find the best words to say, um, we're losing a lot of time doing that. So I just learned to be like, what is it that I want to see in my life? And I call it. And that's basically it. So it
Okay.
could be one thing that I constantly ask for is new opportunities. That's really, really important because there's a lot of opportunities in life. Um, and sometimes we're maybe not at the right position or they're not close to us. So I just call it. And I'm like, I would like to see new opportunities in my life. So I'm calling it into my life. So I guess I'm at this point where I don't really have to read anything. I just, maybe because I've done a lot of reading. So that's important to know too, because the brain does store a lot of things, right? So after a while, the more you read, the more things you have in your brain and the more you can pull out when you need it.
Mhm.
So I think at one point I stopped reading because when you have a lot, you have to start using it. Yeah, and then after a while, I think it just becomes natural. And then when I feel empty, like I have a lack of inspiration, that's when I'll go towards a book, or I'll feel like I need to replenish my mind with like more things now,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
it does absolutely. So Sabrina, yeah, you're one of the you're talking about reading and knowledge, and you're 100% correct. I remember coming across an article that said that because things are advancing so quickly, we cannot possibly keep up with the amount of information. So we might as well kind of stop looking for that and more like applying what we already know. So I think that you're a very good example of that. For me, it's very difficult. I'm like addicted to learning. So you know me, I can't stop. And it's I've even
Right.
have a coach that's helping me, telling me stop buying courses, stop learning new stuff. I'm always like, I just was on. He's like, okay, stop. Just like use. He's like, you already know enough. Just apply what you have. Because if you don't apply what you have, then it's great to have that kind of knowledge. But what's the point if you don't apply it, right? So
That's really important right there. Your head could be full of stuff, but you definitely have to release it
yeah, yeah,
in order for you to see what you're envisioning in your mind, what you're thinking in your mind. You have to bring that out.
yeah, for sure. So I want to talk about what you said about reading. What came to mind right away was that conversation we had a few weeks ago about you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and which I've read, which millions of people have read, and be like, oh, it's a
Yes.
very good book. But you're one of the few people that read the book and said, oh, okay, I'm going to go start buying some properties now. Right? So you want to speak a little bit to that and how that like influenced you and how you like actually realize these amazing things.
Yes. I have heard of the book before, but I never really took the time to read it until I decided myself that I wanted to get to another level financially. So I decided to read a whole bunch of financial books, and I was like, you know what? I've heard of this one. I have no idea what it's talking about, but let me buy it and see. Right? And so I read it, and it really struck home to me because I think that I've always been interested in real estate, but like most people, right? But the more I read it, the more it spoke to me inside, in the sense that he would always talk about opportunities and that they were always there. People think that opportunities are for other people or they can't get to it, but the more I read that book, the more I asked myself questions. I'm like, why is it that there are opportunities around and I'm not seeing it? So I think that book, what it did was it really opened my mind to the fact that I needed to sharpen my skills in terms of how I looked at the world, and I needed to see it through a vision of opportunities. Where are there? How can I find them? And I think that that's what that book did for me, is that it made me realize that for whatever reasons, I'm blind to it. They're all around, but I don't see them. Why is that? And that book really did that for me. And the more I took the tips that he put in there, or like the examples he would give on how he would find properties or the habits that he had, let's say, like one, for example, he mentioned that he would take walks in the neighborhood, and just looking around, he would see what's happening in that neighborhood. Are people investing? Are builders building? And that gave him an idea in a sense of, okay, well, this might be a location that looks optimal or fruitful because people are actually investing in this neighborhood. Maybe I should invest too. So there's a lot of things that were in there that gave me ideas as how to open my mind and inform myself to be able to be someone that spots opportunities. And I think that's what opened the door for me. And that's how I ended up with 2 residential properties and 1 commercial one. It's just that I learned how to look, if that makes any sense.
It does, for sure. It's like the filters, like again, when it all ties together, what you're saying with having positivity, number one. Number two, asking the right questions. That is so important. That's like I would say is one of the secrets of life that people don't realize, is asking yourself the right questions. The wrong questions are like, why does this always happen to me? Why does God hate me? Why does my life suck? Like, and it's when you ask yourself, why is my life so terrible? The universe goes, I better give him some proof to show him why his or her life is so terrible. So then so it provides you these things because it doesn't know better. It's just trying to serve you in its way, right? In its own way. So when you start asking the right questions, like, where are the opportunities? Show me how I can make more money. Where lies the next opportunity for me? Or how can I make more how can I derive or create more sources of income? Then you start seeing your filters start changing. And I think with real estate, it's very interesting because once you start getting into that, and there was a very good friend of mine who, Rick, and once he opened my eyes in these conversations with him, I'd be driving, and everywhere I was driving, I would start noticing this building's for sale. Oh, hey, that one's like across from a metro. That's kind of a good location. And then I would go home and I would look, and then I would send him like emails. Hey, like there's this property. And then he'd be like, in 2 seconds, okay, well, it's this much per square foot. Does that make sense or not? And then start breaking it down in all this amazing, way beyond me technicals of how to evaluate a building and stuff like that. But it's just interesting because otherwise I'd be driving those same like routes, those same streets, but I wouldn't notice any of that because my filter was not to see that, right? My filter wasn't there. My radar wasn't on to spot those opportunities. So it seems like nothing. And I think that's one of the really interesting things how, and I bring this up often, is how we can only process 20% of reality. 80% of reality is we don't actually see at all. And
that's true.
And there's also, and that's like Dan Locke has an amazing video on that. He explains it better than I could. About these filters, and that's why positivity works. That's why asking the right questions work, because it starts changing your filter. Everything is the same. You walk down, but you just don't see it. It's also the way that David Copperfield can make the Statue of Liberty disappear and crazy, amazing magic tricks. And there's actually a system. I remember reading in a book of how magic works. I mean, is that whenever somebody walks into a room, whether it's a man or a woman, the first thing they notice is how many women are in the room, then how many men, then how many animals, then how many plants, and it goes down always the same. Okay, so magicians know this. So because they know this process of exactly how your brain's going to start filtering through things, they can do these amazing illusions or sleight of hand, and they know you'll never see it because of how it processes. It's really, really interesting. So,
no, that's insane.
Yeah, yeah. So next time you walk into a room, just like, hopefully when all this craziness is over, you walk into a new room or something, see what is, you'll see what I mean. It's the craziest thing. So everybody notices how many women, how many men, how many pets, how many plants, and then there's a hierarchy after that. It's very, very cool. Yeah, get your filters. That's what I tell people. Get your filters right. If you're looking for the, opportunities, you'll find them. If you're looking for reasons why your life's so terrible, you'll find those as well.
That's true. It's insane, but I didn't see it that way as filters, but it's exactly that,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's things like we would go crazy, right? Like counting, like you never eat rice and count every right, every piece of rice, right? Or know exactly in a room how many. If you walk into a new room and you see this sometimes in movies, detective shows, and they block the rookie, they block his eyes, and they say how many how many posters and what did you notice in the room, and like is there this and that, and how much did you actually capture in the first
Right.
three seconds you're in a room. But it's so interesting because sometimes even in my own condo, I'll look at something and be like, how long has that been there? Like
And you never saw it.
never noticed it. Never noticed it.
Mm,
Also, what I like to do is because I trick my mind, I say, well, since I don't notice stuff, I'm sure that it's there. I'm like, when I need to find something, like some
mm.
strange kitchen utensil, I'm like, I'm sure I have one. I just probably never noticed it. Right? And then 90% of the time I find it. I'm like, oh, I do have a spaghetti strainer, and like amazing.
Oh,
So, uh,
that's true.
yeah, weird stuff like that. So do you want to speak maybe a little bit? Here's a great segue from spaghetti strainer to virtuous women finance. Do you want to talk a bit about your coaching and with that, and how it's amazing service. I think really, really helps people and is very noble. How you help women with their finance and
Well, Virtuous Women Finance was basically born out of a desire to help women in finance. I know that, finance is something that touches everybody, not just women, but I think that my heart was really to empower women to want to look into their finances even more. Because I find that, funny thing enough, when I actually launched the business officially, which was last year, a lot of men approached me a lot more than women because I find that there are a lot of strong business oriented women or smart women that look into their finances, but there's also a lot that I find leave it to the man, let's say, to deal with. And I think that I really wanted to empower women to be managers of their finances in their homes or their lives, or if they want to, I don't know, be the next Warren Buffett, or they want to, be the next Bill Gates or something. I want to just empower them and teach them and give them the tools in order to be able to create their financial realities, what they want to see. To be honest, I don't think that I'm special more than anyone else. It's really specific things that I have applied in my life, and it happened. So it's basically 2 + 2 = 4. And I want to teach that to people because, as simple as it is, a lot of people don't apply it. And a lot of people maybe wonder, like you said, there are wrong questions to ask. Why is it that I'm always broke? Why is it that I want to have the same luxuries as other people? Why is it that they have it and I don't? Type of thing. But everyone can. And I think that the reason why I mostly geared it towards women is because I really want them to go out there and not limit themselves as to I only belong to the home, or I only have to take care of my children, or whatever things may be in their minds that is blocking them. But I think that that's why I decided to do that.
awesome. Can you give us three free tips off the top of your head? Just some friendly advice or two, but three.
Sure, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Number one is know your stuff. A lot of
That's the art of
people,
war. Yeah, art of war. Yeah.
it's important. I mean, a lot of people know where they want to go in life, but they don't know where they're at. So it's really hard to plan something around data you don't have or that you're ignoring because you're afraid to look at it. So I think tip number one for me is you need to know where you stand financially You need to know your habits. And the only way to really dive into that is to look into the numbers. It's really, really simple, but it's really look at your numbers. You need to know how much you're spending, what are your habits, and what do you tend to spend more on, and how much money are you actually making versus what is coming out. A lot of people wonder, why am I broke? Well, maybe you're just spending more than you're making. But you never really noticed because we use credit cards, and it's easy to lose track when you're using plastic money because you don't really see it, you know.
I think I just on that point, I couldn't agree more. I think that the system is set up that way. The more
Definitely.
it's so much easier when you're just like, and especially with tapping, like you tap your credit card. It's different when you have the physical money, especially when you're paying for anything that's like over $500, right? And you gotta like hold that like 20, like, you know, 25, $20 bills and pay
Yes.
something. You're like, whoa, that's a lot of money. But like with a credit card, it's like bing, and you're like, okay, you're good. It doesn't, you don't feel that impact.
You don't know. You don't. And that's the funny part, is that you don't feel the pain right away versus when you actually have cash in your hand. I actually tried it. I did cash spending only for a while. And I'll tell you something. When I was at the grocery store and I would take out that $20 bill or that $50 bill or whatever it was to pay, I can guarantee you, in my mind, I was like, do I really need this bag of chips? It's crazy, but my mind went that way because the money was in my hand. I actually saw it. I saw, you know, the amount written. There was pain associated to me handing it over, to the point where I was thinking about it, and I was like, do I really need this? But I realized when I had credit cards, I'd be like, oh, I'll be able to pay it back, and most of the time I was. But I realized that all of my extra money went towards purchases, and then I never really had anything extra in order to save or invest or do anything that would actually help me in my life.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that we don't feel the pain right away that it's just easy to leave.
You know, I think that's a really good point. I think everyone should try when things get back to normal, but everyone should try spending, because now everyone's just spending on Amazon, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
and Amazon's just the kings at that because everything's already stored. Just like
Yeah.
add to cart. They already have all your credit card. It's like done, buy, done. It's like you gotta like,
For sure.
it's so
Yeah.
dangerous, right? It's so dangerous. It's like,
And the fact that everybody's running away from actual physical cash right now because nobody wants to touch anything or anybody. So
yeah,
yeah, it's not. But like I would recommend that. So maybe that would be tip number 2,
sure.
is maybe just do the experiments to feel it. Because what was nice is that what happened to me after was that I transitioned back into using cards, because there are advantages to that, you know. But I think that the self control that I had spending cash, I ended up spending less when I went back to the credit cards. So I don't really see that you have to do this your whole life. It was a cool experiment, but I also noticed that going back to my credit cards, I was spending more or less the same amount of money I was spending cash. Maybe something happened to me mentally, and I just kept the same amount of spending with my credit card. So now I'm back on the credit cards, which I don't find that they're demons or anything, but it was a cool experiment. And for whatever reasons, my spending habits did change, and I'm still saving money while on the credit cards. So it'd be pretty cool to try that out. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
that's it. But you know, and again, that's a very good point because credit cards, if you're using credit cards, especially that gain you points, it could be
Yeah,
super advantageous. So
it really is.
spend that money, get the points, pay off your cards. Now you're
Mm.
winning the game. Spend the money,
Yeah,
start getting over indebted, owing 18%, 20%. It's crazy. And I always think about that for the bank, where when they used to have these like campaigns where like banks are your friend, you know, and have these friendly, I won't name the bank, but you know, be like, we're your friend, come in, you know, take a seat. Here's like, you know, we're there for you. Well,
yeah. Here's a free T-shirt just for signing up. You
right,
know?
exactly. Okay, so like, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, you're my friend. Okay, so it's like imagine like, so we're friends, right? So I say to you,
Right.
you say to me, Andrew, hey, can I borrow $100? And I say, sure, Sabrina, you owe me 18% on it, right? You know,
Yeah.
and then the opposite way, and it'll be like, well, I'll give you 0.25%, right? Like, how is that friendly, right? How is that friendly when you want to borrow 100? I tell you, it's going to be 18%. I want to borrow 100 from you, and I say it's going to be 0.25%, right? How we're not going
Right.
to stay friends very long, right? You could be like,
Yeah.
that's kind of a massive disconnect. So that whole thing always drove me nuts. Plus, like, you know what? If they're charging me
Mm,
18% on my credit card, and let's say I have a credit card at $1,000, if I pay 1,100, I want 18% of that extra 100 I put on that credit card. They should
for
pay me
sure.
that, but you know what I mean? Like, they're never gonna do that. You know what I mean? Just like, don't like, you're not my friend, bank. You know, you're evil bank. I don't, I don't know. You know, I don't
Well,
know.
it's funny because that could be the third tip is banks are not there for your best interest, they're there for theirs. But if you learn how to use their services, you could definitely profit. A rule of thumb is, it's okay to use your credit for daily expenses. If you know that you're disciplined and you know that you're able to spend reasonably, but the main reason for using credit is only if you need to invest in something that could possibly generate money for you in the future. It could also be equipment for your business or things that you need to make your business grow or to start your business. But it'll eventually, all these things will come together and help you to produce more money, right? And if you don't have the more money like right away, you can borrow for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I was actually inspired by Donald Trump for certain things because he does talk about leveraging debt a lot.
Yeah,
And at one point, I was really against it. I was like, oh God, no, I don't want to do anything with debt. But sometimes, and at one point, I was like, you know what? Let me test this out. So I was like, if it's true that it's good to like to sometimes borrow if you need to invest, and you don't have the money right now, but the opportunity is here right now,
sure.
then at this point, I'll try it, and at least I'll be able to see if it's worth it or not for myself, right? And so I actually did do that recently. Um, I'm not really comfortable with a lot of debt, but it did help me acquire something that will eventually generate money for me. And it already did start generating money for me. So I think that it's good to know that the bank is not there for you, they're there for them. However, sometimes we do need that boost. We were not necessarily born into money, or the opportunities is there and we're seeing it, but we have no way to invest. You can leverage debt, but you just have to be mindful of that. Don't spend it on things that can't generate money for you, like TVs or trips or all sorts of things that feel good now and are useless, but on things that can make money for you in the future.
Yeah, that's what you said. I mean, Robert Kiyosaki says that too, like good debt and bad debt, right? Like,
For sure.
and that's the thing. And you said it right there. So if it's you're going to go into debt to buy a luxury item, it's probably not a good idea. It's a
No.
liability. But if you're going to, go into debt to get an asset, it's worth it, right? It's
Right.
probably the good move. And it's tough because it's discipline, right? I think so much of it comes
Yes.
down to discipline. You tell people, they're aware of it, they still don't do it. And I don't blame, I used to be very hard on people because I'm a very
Yeah.
disciplined person. So I used to be like, you just, just the people, I'd just be like, you just lack discipline. But then recently in the last, I don't know, probably I've got a little bit softer, I must say, in the last while. I got a little bit softer on people because I realized how difficult it is to break habits and how much our subconscious mind is in control and how
Mm.
little how much effort it just takes and everything. We're such habitual creatures, so once you get into a bad habit, it's really tough to break it.
It is. It takes effort to break it. It's actually easier to get into a bad habit than break it, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's it. So you get into it. So it takes that massive discipline to get into good habits. But once you're into good habits, then a habit is a habit. So I find once you're into good habits, where good
Yes.
habits continue, and it's not that hard. It's like rolling, getting that rock on the hill, like pushing it over that hill. And once it starts rolling, now it's like it's got some momentum. So now it's a habit, and it's a good habit, and it's
Right.
taking care of itself. So it doesn't require as much effort. But starting that good habit. So if you can address those habits that are helping you and address those ones that are hurting you. And there's someone just recently where I was listening to a webinar. He was saying, just do one new habit a month. Okay. Find one a month.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
goes, and so then after a year, you have 12 good new habits. And then obviously, not to be the math genius I am after 2 years, you would have 24. I'm impressing everyone with my math skills. 24 new habits, but that's a lot of habits. That's a lot of momentum just in 2 years. That's huge. If you're doing 24 things differently, that's life changing.
It
But
is, yeah.
but not to do too much too fast, because people will watch. And I love Tony Robbins, but people will watch a great motivational speaker like him get all fired up and be like, I'm going to change this. I'm not going to spend on
Yeah,
this. I'm going to sell my
yeah,
TV. And then like that motivation just, it goes really fast up, and then slowly, and then boom, it just crashes. And then you're just like, in a week, you're just back to eating tubs of ice cream and overspending on your credit card.
yeah, for sure.
Good debt, good habits. Let's move on to. Is that okay? Can we? That's great. Thank you so much, by the way, for that.
No
That's
problem.
three good tips, for sure. And actually, before we move on, I'm going to say that what I learned too is, when I was doing music for many years, is I lived very. I had, like, the whole term starving musician, so I had very very little money, and I learned
Hmm.
how to be happy and take care of myself on ridiculously low amounts of money.
It is so important what you did. You're like hitting something that is actually really important to know. Like, great to have all these things, but they don't bring happiness and they don't bring fulfillment, but they do bring comfort. And there's nothing wrong with comfort. There's nothing wrong with having everything that you need and being able to share that wealth with other people. So riches is not a bad thing, but it won't bring you that happiness. So if you can learn to be happy with nothing, you'll be happy with much, because it doesn't bring happiness. A lot of people think that money might solve, I don't know, whatever it is that they're feeling, but it won't. Just the fact that you learned that,
Yeah, that's it. And then they say,
yeah,
like, money is a multiplier. A lot of misconceptions about people with wealth. They say, oh, wealthy people are jerks or something like that. And they say, and
right.
it's not. They say money is it's a multiplier. It's an enhancer. So if you were a jerk before,
This,
you're
yeah,
going to be a jerk with money, and it may be a
yeah,
bigger jerk. And if
it's
you're a
true.
really kind and nice person, generous person before you had money, and then you come into the money, where you're going to probably be just like even a more generous and nice person. So just like a
That is
multiplier,
very
enhancer,
true. It really does amplify whatever it is that,
amplifier. That's the
yeah,
right word. Yeah.
it really does.
But it's those things, those limit, like you said before, the right questions, also limiting beliefs. So
Hmm.
if you believe that all wealthy people are mean or greedy or dishonest, then you're just self sabotage, right? Because you're like, well, I'm not.
Definitely.
And then you say to yourself, well, I'm not a greedy person, and I'm an honest person. So then you're saying, you're telling your mind, so I can never be wealthy, because that they contradict each other, right?
They really do. Yeah, there's a lot of that in that, and that's why I think I want to really coach people, mainly women, obviously. But yeah,
So you
it's
would turn
because of
away?
that.
Would you turn away a man that said, Sabrina, I need your help, please, please help me?
I'd be like, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I wouldn't, because every man that has approached me, I actually did help, because I really want to help everyone. But I really decided to create a business to attract women. Like I said, so far, most of my clients, or people that are wanting to know about my services, or people in my life, what they do is they like to hang around me a lot whenever they have financial questions. So I have like,
Free advice, yeah.
they do, yeah, they use me a lot. I'll be really honest with that. They
Yeah.
think I don't know, but I know. And they're all guys.
That's funny. That's
To be
funny.
really honest. So that's why I want to attract women. I'm like, where are the women? Where are they? I want to see them. I want to talk to them. I want to help them grow, or grow with them, because I'm still growing, right?
For sure. I'm going to tell you a quick trick that I learned
Sure.
from somebody. Okay, so there was someone I knew who's much older, and he had a neighbor, and his neighbor was a lawyer, right? So
Mm,
he went out to put out the garbage, and
mm,
he saw this neighbor was putting out his garbage. So he went out to put out the garbage at the same time, and he said to his neighbor, "Oh, how are you?" And played like friendly. And then he asked him for some advice, because the guy's a lawyer, and a great lawyer at that. So he said, I had this issue and stuff like that. So the guy, his neighbors, gave him some great advice, on how we could solve it. He said, okay, cool. And He went back into his home. The next day, he went to get his mail, and
Mhm.
there was a bill from his neighbor for consultation fee for like $500,
Wow.
which is hilarious, right? So like he really literally gave him a bill. Like he's just like that. Obviously, they weren't friendly neighbors, right? But like he saw it, and he's just like, okay, like you want to ask my advice? Like here's my fee, and charge them. So you could just be like, yo, you're on the clock right now, just be like,
But I'm thinking of transitioning into that. Obviously, yes, I do give a free first consult. So I basically like to get to know the person that I'm potentially or I'm working with. But I also want them to decide for themselves whether I'm the right fit for them, because it's really important. I want to help people and I want them to make the decision, and I don't want to just sell them something that might not help them. So I give them that opportunity to ask me whatever they want. They could test it out for themselves. And if they feel like, you know what, I want to continue with Sabrina, I want to continue with Virtuous Women Finance, then we go ahead. But I do offer that free first consult.
yeah, that's great. That's super awesome. But the other thing, I think I'm a strong believer in coaching, in mentorship. I think everyone should have a mentor and a coach.
For sure.
It's helps so much because you can't see on yourself because you're so close to your own situation, no matter who.
Yeah,
And all the most, so many of the most successful people, they all have coaches, multiple
they
coaches.
really do. Yeah, I even get coached. It's
Of course.
everybody gets stuck sometime or at some point in their lives, and sometimes multiple times in their lives, or even habitually we get stuck. It's just it helps to unstick us in a way.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what I mean?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you can't like it doesn't matter how intelligent, how knowledgeable you are, you just can't do it for yourself. You need somebody else to help. And I remember
Hmm.
seeing this thing with being at a seminar with JT Fox, and he was talking about. I was talking to an Olympic athlete, and this Olympic athlete was saying that he was having trouble launching his business and stuff like that, and came to JT Fox, and JT said to him, and some people hate JT Fox, and some people love him, and like everyone, he's got the haters out there, and
Hmm. Of
whatever.
course.
Certain things the guy's very very intelligent at, and so he said, well, when you were in the Olympics, how many coaches did you have? And he said, oh well, I had a fitness coach, I had an endurance coach, I had a speed coach, I had a strength
Wow.
coach, and he named like 7 coaches. And then JC said, okay, cool. And he goes, and how many coaches do you have now? And he's like, none. So,
Hmm.
and it's really interesting, right? So like anyone that gets to these levels, and we see that mostly in professional sports, is they have multiple coaches and multiple people helping them. So that in our own lives, right, like it just makes so much sense to have somebody to coach you
Yes.
through things and make breakthroughs. And really, what it is it's about time. Often, you will be able to get there yourself, but you might get there in a year instead of a month. And
It's
if
funny. I was thinking about the same thing before you even mentioned it. Like the time that you save in number of years of your life is worth more than anything you could really spend. Obviously, be wise in what you spend, because I am a financial coach, right? But it does make the difference between, let's say, 1 year versus 10 years for the same outcome, or like you said, a year versus a month. It's a huge time saver,
Yeah,
really.
that's it. And I look at like I've purchased many different courses, and I've followed many
Hmm.
different people, and like following Bob Proctor, and Mary Morrissey, and
Hmm.
they're quite elderly people. And so you have like, I don't know, Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor, I think, is going to live forever. I don't think like I really think he will. Like I don't know how old he is now, but he has the energy of a 20-year-old. I think he's like 80 something, 86. He's still like, it's
Wow.
unbelievable. And but you look and you
Hmm.
say, you know what, this guy has amazing amount of years of experience. And if you could
Hmm.
just listen to him, if his whole lifetime he took, like, when you don't have that time, we don't live, unfortunately, to maybe at some point, but to 1,000, 10,000 years old, it would be very
For
different game.
sure.
It would be a different game. But saying, okay, we have a certain lifespan. So the only way to fast track it is to take these people, exceptional people, to coach you. to bring you to that point quicker. That's the only way you're going to get faster, because you just don't have the time. I can't live Bob Proctor's full life and be, you know what I mean? It just doesn't work, and live all these other people's lives. I don't regret buying any of these programs from, different coaches and stuff like that, and getting coaching. I have a coach right now, and he's fantastic, and it's helped me amazingly, and helped me to launch my YouTube channel. And
That's amazing.
yeah, I give him a lot of credit for. And I'm very motivated and very strong myself, but still, so I recommend your coaching services to our listener, absolutely, to fast track and just get there faster, right?
But it's funny because since we know each other, I've actually seen the difference. I didn't know what it was, but now that you mention it, I've actually seen it.
I'm always up to different things, creative things and things like that. But there was, it was hard. It's hard getting in front of the camera.
It really is, yes.
And then, I saw with so many things, with so many people, the big problem with launching a YouTube channel or a podcast is you can't so many people launch and then they just stop. It's very, very difficult to continue. So for myself, I said, when I launch, I'm never going to stop. And
Sure.
Well, we can record this, and someone can call me out in the future if I ever stop. Like, look, you said you're never going to stop, and you did. But I've been consistent since March 15th. I released, I think, 4 or 5 videos in a row, and then I did 1 per week, and then 2 per week, and now I'm doing a podcast per week and a video per week. And I do it all to serve people. Like, it's not.
Sure.
It doesn't make me any money. It takes me a lot of time, but it's kind of, I think, and another reason why we're such good friends is that I look at the knowledge I have and I said, I want to share it with people. I want
yeah, of course,
help people. And the same thing with you with finance. Sometimes I look and some people say to me, oh, it's amazing the amount of wealth of knowledge that you have. And you should share it with people. I've heard that from a lot of people. And sometimes people are like, man, you're the most annoying person in the world, because I always know, I always got to try to not, I give myself timeouts in public forums with other people, because I hear people talking and I'm like, oh, you're so wrong. And it's not because I read one book, because I've had 5 different sources and it's just a fact,
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when people are saying something, they're like, oh, I've already learned everything I need to know in life. So, I don't see there's any point in really learning anything new. And I would just be like, oh, biting my tongue. Or someone will say something super self-sabotaging, oh, who wants to be rich anyways? People who are rich are just miserable. And I was like, oh, and I just you know what I mean? And I just, so many times in so many situations, I have all this knowledge. And I guess this gives a platform for me to share that knowledge, and for people to just turn it off if they don't want me to talk anymore.
But I think that's great. We have so much to offer everybody, but there are people that they don't want to learn anything because they think they know everything. And then there are people that are desperately seeking for that information and maybe not have access to it. So this is a great platform to be able to share that with whoever actually wants to hear it. So it's really great.
Yeah, there's this quote I try to find. It says something. I'll just paraphrase it. It says something to the effect of, it says, "Don't give advice, because if you give advice to a wise man, he doesn't need it, and if you give advice to a fool, he won't listen to it."
True.
Right. So it's very interesting, interesting things. So I often think of that. So I try to be reserved, but then I can see and I get some feedback, and it's so encouraging. And I get people,
for sure.
from the YouTube. I released that video on Saturday, and it was about when to be happy. And anyways, and then a friend of mine reached out and said oh man, it was really helpful, and just being don't say I'll be happy when, be happy now. And you see all those people that and I know that we follow, and then we say it's the journey. All the people at the end, when they're already rich and successful, they're remember to enjoy the journey. And they're always that's the greatest part. It's not at the end when you have this mansion and you're
That's
there,
true.
you're I did it, and that's it. And then that's you have a wonderful life now, and it's this Disney fairy tale kind of
and you've
ending
got stars all around.
that's it, and that's it, and then you've done it, right? And now you're finally happy. It's not it at all. Studying so many wealthy people, they say you never stop having problems. You just have different types of problems.
You know what? I realized that the more I do, the more I need to manage, and the more stuff comes up all the time. And it's true, it never ends. However, it does sharpen your abilities and how you handle them. But I could truly say, like, it never ends. As soon as you feel like you've solved something, something up pops up the same day or the next day. So you barely had one day to enjoy whatever problem you solved and feel proud of yourself or whatever sensation you feel when you get something done, you know? But no, it doesn't. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I can really testify to that, and yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
this
end.
it's that, and it's also like I'm pretty much into like minimalism. Like I have very few objects, but everything that I own is very of very high quality. So that's my
Yes,
whole philosophy, and I really believe in that. The things that we own end up owning us. So when you
that's
start
true.
having so many things, and I know this, just on that same subject of someone that
Hmm.
bought a boat, very nice boat, and it was like the upkeep of the boat and fueling it and cleaning it. It's a lot of work. It's a
Yeah,
lot of
sometimes it
work.
is. Yeah. Like
So
I've had so many moments where I was like, did I make the wrong decision? Did I do this? Did I do that? But I realized that I enjoyed everything that I did. So it did make me know that it was, the right choice for me, but it also made me learn that I needed to delegate. Because at one point, we're on a journey, and the more we invest in our lives, the more you'll see increase. But you now have to not just acquire, all those extra riches or whatever it is that you're going for. You actually have to manage it. And that's where all the problems come from. It's the maintenance, it's the upkeep, it's the management, right? But then you just get to another level where you learn to delegate and you learn to, I don't know, grow. Like, instead of being one person, you now build a team. So you just adapt, right? But I think that whenever we feel like it's too much for us to handle, it's just an indicator that you're at a level where you need just to switch things up, But the journey is quite fun. And if you're not enjoying it, then you have it for
right. Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to miss it. That's like the advice that a lot of these guys said. You don't want to, you don't want to don't miss the fun of it. The struggle of it.
nothing. And
That's the
it is
game.
fun.
It's the
Yeah, it
game.
really
You know,
is.
it's the game. Yeah, and there's like for sure there's unfun parts and to the game, but it's all in all it's I guess it's just that point. It's just not to forget that that's what's the most important
For
is
sure.
enjoying that journey, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
One last thing I want to ask you is just about you have so many. You're such a busy person. Any one advice on time management?
Yes. I mean, for sure, discipline has a lot to do with it, but that does come with time. So don't be too hard on yourself. Um, I think that when it comes to time management, you do need to schedule time for yourself. It's really important. So you need to schedule time to get enough sleep, enough time to sometimes just be alone, relax. It's important to know to schedule these things, because if you're tired or you're weary or your health is not able to keep up with the demand, your work is going to be sloppy anyway, and you're not going to get the results that you want, and you're going to burn yourself out. So it's important that you need to schedule almost everything in your life, and that includes time for yourself, rest, sleep, preparing your meals if you have to, so that you eat healthy. If you have a plan for your day, you'll find that you're more productive. If
What's the first thing you do when you wake up? You have like an amazing morning routine.
I do not, I really don't. Unfortunately, my mornings are different every day. Okay. So some mornings I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to go back to bed. There's other days that I'm like rolling in my bed for at least 30 minutes and then I get out. There's some I'm super motivated and pumped and I get up and I'm meditating. And so it's different every day. to be really honest. And so that's why I don't see it as too hard on myself. I see it as it doesn't matter how my day starts. It could start great. It could start like I'm super tired and I stay positive and I'm like, you know what? I'm not a morning person. I have tried. Trust me, I have tried and it is not for me. But my day will end great.
That's
And that's
great.
that's what I really focus on. But I noticed that it didn't matter how much I tried to have a routine, it never worked. It really didn't. So I just abandoned that. I just make sure I get up on time, I get ready, and I go.
Cool.
Some days I'll be able to meditate, the way I want to. Some days I'll be in the metro doing it,
Yeah, sure.
but
Sure.
as long as I get it in my day, that's all that matters, basically.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Okay, Sabrina. So listen, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. We're gonna kind of wrap it up. Is there any
Thank you.
last thoughts? Because I kind of jumped in there. Is there any last thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, I mean, when it comes to your own personal life, I think the only thing I'd like to tell people is that never stop investing in yourself. It's really, really important. Listen to videos like, videos we find on your channel or, anybody that really speaks life into your life, that brings tips that will make your life better. I think that it's always important to invest in yourself because the more you have, the more you can release into others people's lives. So don't ever stop investing in yourself.
Okay, that's great advice. Okay, thanks so much from Sabrina. So with that,
Thank you, Andrew.
I will wish you a successful and peaceful mind and have yourself a wonderful evening, and we'll talk super soon.
All right, take care. Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye, Sabrina. Okay.